Hey, y'all, we are about a minute or two early. I am just going to pop on here and make sure everything is okay. And then we'll get started in just a minute. We're going to give people a little bit of time to hop into the live while I share the broadcast. Give me just a minute. Let's see. All right, here we go. Okay, let me just share this really quickly. Okay. That has been posted. Let me get my, oh, I don't even think my little name's on here. Hold on a second. Oh, yes. Let me just do this one thing. I forgot one thing, y'all. And then we actually will get started. Let me just do this real quick. Oh my goodness, I don't need all that. I just need this. Okay, y'all, one thing. 1 second, I have got to add something. I'm so sorry, y'all. I forgot to add this earlier, and now I have to add it now. Um, let's see. I believe it's in here. Yes, slides. And then we can be about the business of fancy dancing. It's uploading the slides right now. Okay. Hi, everybody. How are you doing? I hope that everybody is super excited, just like I am, to discuss today's book. Um, Hello, live stream viewers. Hello, replay viewers. Thank you so much for joining me and joining the discussion today. I hope y'all can hear me all right. The Language of Fanaticism. It's a book by Amanda Martell. But before we do that, we are going to hold on one sec. Let me see if I can't pull this up. There we go. It is Cultish by Amanda Martell, The Language of Fanaticism. So before we jump into the book discussion, I have a few announcements. So hold on one second. Let me see how this is going to work. Look at that. Boom. Announcements. Okay. So, in case y'all didn't know, there is a new book club in town, and it's here at Lamb Library. It's called the Horror Cafe, and they'll be serving up lattes, cookies, and carnage the last Wednesday of every month at 7 p.m. August's book is Rosemary's Baby by Ira Levin. Is it Levine or Levin? I don't know if it's Levine or Levin. I'm sorry, Ira. But either way, it's going to be here in person at Lamb Library at 7 p.m. You do have to register. There's 10 slots left, so make sure to get registered for August's book today. If you need help with that, just give us a call, or you can register yourself online at www.pueblolibrary.org. O-R-G. Also, Lamb has our tween and teen hangout every Tuesday at 3:45 to 5:30. We make crafts, movies, have snacks, and game night. So stop by and check it out and bring a friend. And one of my more favorite announcements is Dolly Parton's Imagination Library. 2 million books sent out to children so far. And in case a lot of you didn't know, Pueblo Library is one of the Imagination Library partners. You can register any child there. I'm sorry. The mic was doing some fan. I keep hitting something and make sure she's plugged in. Okay. I hope y'all can hear me. All right. So, anywho, Dolly Parton's going to be putting secret special bookmarks in 7 books that she's giving out during September. You have to be registered already to receive those books. I believe the deadline to register might have been July the 13th. So if you're already registered and you've been getting those books every month from Dolly Parton, then you could potentially be one of the 7 lucky people who gets a special bookmark. Use the regular microphone. All right. Let me make sure that y'all can hear me. Hold on a second. To receive those books, I believe the deadline to register might have been July the 13th. So if you're already registered. Okay, good. It looks like you can hear me. It's a little bit of a delay over here, but I just unplugged the mic. So you should be able to hear me just fine. Okay, so anyway, if you have registered your child already, then you might be one of those lucky families that gets a bookmark and you get to meet Dolly Parton. It's like going to Willy Wonka's chocolate factory without all the trauma. If you haven't already registered, that's okay. You can still register to get your child to receive a free book from Dolly Parton every month, and it's from age 0 all the way up to 5. So come on in and register anyway. Even if you've missed the deadline to get a chance to meet with Dolly, your baby can still get free books, and that's really, really important. The reason why Dolly Parton started this, I want to tell y'all real quick. Hold on, it's in here. Okay, here we go. So Dolly Parton started giving away these free books because her father, she called him a country boy. What did she say? She called him a country boy that couldn't read. And he always felt real bad about it. And so Dolly thought, well, what can I do for my precious dad? Because he was the greatest daddy in the world and one of the smartest people I'd ever known. So I said, Dad, why don't we put together a little program where we give children books from the time they're born once a month until they start school, which in America is about 5. Parton explained that way they can learn to read books and love books. If you can read, you can kind of self-educate. And that is absolutely true. If you check out the right books, the library is like a university. So I've always been really just amazed that Dolly Parton would do something so awesome. And she said that she's given away 200 million books and she's just getting started. So please let us register your child to get some free books from Dolly Parton. You can do that online. You just click on the Imagination. I keep wanting to say Imagination Station, the Imagination Library link at our website, or you could just give us a call and we'll help you get your babies registered so they can get some free books from Dolly Parton. Super, super amazing. Okay, now the announcements are over. Thank you so much. So let's do a little bit of talking about the author. Hold on one second. Let's do this because I don't like this. Nope, that's too big. Let's do this again. There we go. I like that a little bit better. Okay, so today's book that we are reading is, again, Cultish, The Language of Fanaticism by Amanda Montell. So Amanda Montell is a writer and a language scholar from Baltimore, Maryland. She is the author of the critically acclaimed Word Slut, A Feminist Guide to Taking Back the English Language, which we have right here. Oh, you can't see because of the green screen. We have a physical copy here. If you have read Cultish and you want to read Word Slut, we do have a physical copy. Let's see what else. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Amanda holds a degree in linguistics from New York University and lives in Los Angeles, Silver Lake neighborhood with her partner, Plants and Pets. And she's also working on her 3rd book right now, which is going to be out in 2024, I believe. And Cultish has been opted to be like a TV series. So they're going to basically break down each chapter of this book and use it to start a TV series. And I believe that is, I want to say it's with Netflix, but I don't quote me on that because it could be somebody else. All right, so hang on, let's do this. Do I like that? Yeah, that'll do. That'll do. Yeah, okay, we're gonna do that. So anyway, Cultish was named Best Book of 2021 by NPR. It was shortlisted on the Goodreads Choice Awards and Get Abstract International Book Award. Cultish has been translated into 7 different languages. All right, so let's get started. All right, so what is a cult? As it turns out, there is no official definition for what a cult is. And honestly, back in the day, it was actually a religious term. It was a religious term. Hold on a second. I have to get to my actual notes. It was a religious term that meant to honor a deity, to pay homage to divinity, kind of like the cult of Dionysus back when people were when worshiping Greek gods was at its height, I should say. I don't want to presume and say that nobody's worshiping Greek gods nowadays, because that's definitely not true. Anywho, it's also meant offerings made to win over the gods. So cult does not have an official definition because it's too convoluted. It has biases in it, and those biases allow us to ignore the mistreatment of people in groups. And also, the reason why it doesn't have an official definition is because, according to Stephen Kent, a sociology professor at the University of Alberta, the word cult has been applied to groups that have a degree of supernatural beliefs. But also, you can apply it to groups that you don't like, whether they're a cult or not. So a lot of people in the academic fields just don't use that word. So let's see. Here it is. It says cult. The word cult has been frequently used as permission to trash religions that society doesn't approve of. So how do we qualify a cult? Once upon a time, religious groups like Catholics, Baptists, Mormons, Quakers, Jewish folks, and a lot of Native American religions were once considered blasphemous or cult-like. So it just really doesn't have a definition. But let's see, there are some criteria that we can use to kind of give shape to the word. So cult criteria are among the following. They have charismatic leaders, mind-altering behaviors, sexual and financial exploitation, an us versus them mentality toward non-members, and an ends justifies the mean philosophy. Also, in more modern times, cults are not always religious. You can have cult of personalities. You can have fitness cults. And a couple of the fitness cults that she mentions in this book is, what's the one? Soul Cycle. She also mentions, what are the ones that work out in the big box gyms? They're called, oh, I can't think of the name now, y'all. And I have so many notes too. What are they called? Hang on a second. It is called, not powerlifting, that's something else. It'll come to me. But they're the ones that push through the, hold on a second, it's bothering me. Hold on a second, y'all. Oh, what are they called? No, we don't want this. There we go. CrossFit. That's the word, CrossFit. She talks about CrossFit in here. She talks about Soul Cycle. She talks about AO3, which is like a yoga and Eastern kind of exercises as well. I hope that's not screen sharing. Okay, so that's why the definition is so broad now too, because there's not an official academic definition, mainly because people can use it to disparage groups that they don't like without any kind of actual factual backing, and also because a lot of people tend to think of cults like the David Koresh cult, in Waco, the Jim James cult in Guyana. Who else? The Heaven's Gate cult from the 90s, and where they all committed mass suicide and they wore those black Nikes. They tend to think that cults have to have a religious bent or a religious tone to them, and they don't. It can be, like I said earlier, things like Soul Cycle or CrossFit, or even certain types of yogis, like the guy Osho, which was in that Netflix movie from Going Wild from 2018. No, Wild Wild Country in 2018 on Netflix. It can also be MLMs like Mary Kay, or Lululemon, or who else? Amway. That used to be banned here in Colorado. I don't know if it still is, but it used to be once upon a time. So she emphasizes this because the definition of cult is expanding, and you can no longer just apply it to religions. It can even be cults of personalities that you find on social media. Like she mentioned specifically Till Swan from YouTube and other social media gurus and cult like figures. So she wrote this book because it's called cultish, because one of the main power tools that a quote unquote cult leader will use is language. And when she's saying cultish, she is saying it like it's its own language, and once you hear it, you cannot unhear it. So she's comparing cultish as a language form, like you would say English or Swedish or Spanish. She is saying cultish is the language of fanaticism. That's why it's in the title. I really found this book quite fascinating, how she broke things down and talked about America's obsession with cult. And so we are also going to discuss what causes seemingly norming people to join and study in a fanatical fringe group with extreme ideologies, because it's not who you think it is. And also, we're going to talk about brainwashing, because brainwashing isn't really a thing. It's a pseudoscientific concept that the majority of psychologists that Mendel interviewed denounce. It's kind of like Stockholm Syndrome, and how that really isn't true either, and how a lot of the reporters and the news folks got that wrong too. So people who join cults aren't brainwashed. Again, that's a pseudoscientific term that psychologists don't even recognize. Currently, they don't. Once upon a time, they probably did. So, anywho, the book is broken into about 6 parts. So, part 1 goes through the language we use to talk about cultish groups. And again, we have to be very aware of how we use this language, because words mean things, and the order in which you use them can change that. But also so that we're not passing on biases to people who might need our help and less of our judgment. Then the part 2 through 5 covers key elements of cultish language, how they work to persuade followers, and how they pervade our day-to-day vocabularies. So part 2 are suicide cults. That's where she talks about Heaven's Gate, Jamestown. I think like 900 people died in that. If you're old enough, you might remember the Guyana tragedy made for TV miniseries. Also, if you know who Armistead Moffin is in Tales of the City, 2, some group of people are talking about this new group that they just found, and they're going to Guyana to live. And I'm like, oh no, you're going to die in the Jamestown massacre. Even the term "drink the Kool-Aid," which, if we have time, we'll get into this. But even that is weighted. It's a weighted term that doesn't really talk about what was really going on. And it is disparaging the victims, because they were victims, unfortunately. Part 3 covers controversial religions. Part 4 talks about MLMs, and that's multi-level marketing. Part 5 is cult fitness studios. And then part 6 is where she covers social media gurus. So again, cults are not just religious. They cover all types of things. And the social media part is really interesting because it allows more access. But we'll get into that in just a second. So let's see. We've talked about the cultish criteria. What does cult mean? We've talked about that. Let's see. let's go in here real quick. Let me see if we're ready for the next slide. Hold on. Not quite, but yeah, we can move on because we only have so much time. All right, so how does language become cultish? So oftentimes in this book, she would talk about how people would use certain words that was in in-group type of speak. You had to be in the group to actually understand what these folks were talking about. So, language is a way to get members of a community on the same page, to help them feel like they belong to something big. Language provides a culture of shared understanding. So, that's how language can become cultish. It's actually how a lot of charismatic leaders use it as a tool. And if they're very good at it, they can convince a lot of people to start adopting that language, like Jim Jones did. He was a very charismatic person. He did something that a lot of you might be familiar with, the term love bombing, where he made everybody feel like he was talking directly to them and speaking their language specifically. Let me see if I can find the quote from that, because there is a professor of divinity in here. Two of her sisters, I think they were her only sisters, died in Guyana. And so she really has a lot to say about the term drinking the Kool-Aid and what that actually means. Let me see if I can't find that real quick, because poor lady lost both of her sisters. Let's see. So anywho, part of the reasons why cults and cult languages have become so prominent in America is because turmoil. Here we go. We'll talk about how when societies are going through a lot of turmoil and upheaval, people start looking for answers, and they often look to emerging groups. I don't want to say fringe, but emerging groups. So like, for instance, it says, here we go. The tide of change away from mainstream establishment and toward non-traditional groups is not at all new. It's something we've seen all over the world at several different junctures in human history. Society's attraction to so-called cults, both the propensity to join them and the anthropological fascination with them, tends to thrive during periods of broader existential questioning. Most alternative religious leaders come to power not to exploit their followers, but instead to guide them through social and political turbulence. Jesus of Nazareth, you might know who that is, arose during what is said to be the most fraught time in Middle Eastern history, a fact which speaks of itself. The violent encroaching Roman Empire left people searching for a non-establishment guide who could inspire and protect them. 1,500 years later, during the tempestuous European Renaissance, dozens of cults cropped up in rebellion against the Catholic Church. In 17th century India, fringe group grew out of the social discord that resulted from the shift to agriculture and then as a reaction to British imperialism. So this is why Americans tend to have more cults. Part of that is because it speaks to a specific brand of American tumultuousness. A lot of times what people are looking for to provide, religions provide distinct connection that a lot of people are looking for. They provide meaning, purpose, a sense of community, and ritual. Now, with the advent of social media, and then also just a lot of people seeking other religions and whatnot, folks started creating a bespoke type of spirituality. In fact, you'll probably hear a lot of people say that they are spiritual and not religious. And there's nothing wrong with that or with people saying that. But in the context of this book, it is talking about how people can kind of have a smorgasbord of different religious practices, and they're picking from one and picking from here to make something whole. And so when people start to move the religious part or the religious aspect from that, it makes how am I going to say this? It makes it easier for cults and cult-like institutions to spring up and be supported. How about that? That's how we'll say it. Because again, you have to be aware of how you're speaking about things and who you are talking about. These are real people who have gone through some real hard stuff. Also, let's see, we've already talked about cult criteria. Here we go. The woman who both of her sisters died in the Jonestown massacre. Her name is Rebecca Moore, and she's a religious professor at San Diego State University. And this is what she has to say. She says, cult doesn't have an official academic definition because it's inherently pejorative. Let's see. It's simply used to describe groups we don't like. And she does, like I said, comes to that from a unique place. Her two sisters were among those who perished in the Jonestown massacre. He enlisted them to help pull the event off. But Moore says she doesn't use the word cult in earnest. Pardon me. Because it's judgment laden. As soon as someone says it, we know as readers, listeners, or individuals exactly what we should think about that particular group. And then, of course, as we talked about, it goes into brainwashing and whatnot. So that's why it doesn't have an official definition. And that's why we really need to be careful about how we talk about these groups and how we talk about these people, because they are people. And also, cults didn't just turn they weren't always violent. They weren't always negative. They might have been a little fringe and off to the side, but until what's his name? The Mason family, Charles Manson. I said Mason. The Manson family started killing people, and the Jim Jones church, they really didn't necessarily have a lot of violence connected with them. And cults have been around for a long time. Like I was talking about earlier, the cult of Dionysus from Greece. Then there was in America in the 1800s, there was a cult of polyamorous communists, I think, called the Oneida in upstate New York, I want to say. If I'm not mistaken, Louisa May Alcott, the lady who wrote Little Women, her daddy was a part of that. Let me see if I can find that in here, because I have so many notes. I don't know if you can see this. Hold on. Let me see. It's a really great book. Oh, you can't see it because of the green screen. Hold on. It's a really great book, and I took a lot of notes because I really found it fascinating. But anywho, we were talking about Louisa May Alcott's daddy because he was a part of the cult in Oneida. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can find it. I don't see it in here. Yeah, we talked about CrossFit. We'll get into that a little bit more later. Anywho, here we go. Since we did say CrossFit and I did bring it up, let's talk about that for just a little bit. So for those who bristle at the idea of comparing workout classes to religion, know that as tricky as it is to define cults, scholars have been arguing even harder for centuries over how to classify religion. You might have a feeling that Christianity is a religion while fitness is not, but even experts have a tough time distinguishing exactly why. And so what she focuses on is less about what religions are and more about what religions do, which is provide, again, like I said, a sense of meaning, purpose, a sense of community, and ritual. And a lot of these non-religious groups like Soul Cycle and CrossFit do that. If you've ever been around anybody who does CrossFit, you'll hear them talking about their gains and whatnot. You'll hear them talking about they use a CrossFit language. It is a way that language can, like I said, help people bond and get them on the same page. Here, let's take that off because we've already talked about it. Also, there's something here I wanted to talk about, language and how it is used to help people bond and to help people connect with one another. Hang on, maybe it's right here. Here we go. So language is a leader's charisma. It's what empowers them to create a mini universe, a system of values and truth, and then compel their followers to heed its rules. And humans are kind of cultish by nature. We're social by design, and our behavior is driven by a desire for belonging and purpose. And if that need for desire and purpose is not being fulfilled by your society, somebody will come in and fill the void. And they don't always have nefarious aims or intent. They don't always have nefarious intentions, but all you have to do is get somebody who gets a little bit of drunk off the power and doesn't want to give it up, and then you can have a problem on your hand if you're not careful. Now, there is a professor in here that talked about ethical cults and unethical or destructive groups. Hang on, it's on page 19. Let me see if I can get it because I have my notes, but then I want to make sure that I'm quoting properly. Hold on a second. Yes, Stephen Hassan. He's a mental health counselor and author of the book, The Cult of Trump. And he's also one of the country's most foremost cult expert. And he has described an influence continuum representing groups from healthy and constructive to unhealthy and destructive. Hassan says, hold on, let me get my glasses, they're slipping. Hassan says that groups toward the destructive end use 3 kinds of deception: omission of what you need to know, distortion to make whatever they're saying more acceptable, and outright lies. One of the main differences between so-called ethical cults, Hassan talks about sports and music fans and noxious ones, is that an ethical group will be upfront about what they believe in, what they want from you, and what they expect from your membership. And leaving comes with few, if any, serious consequences. So if you tell them I found a better band or I don't like basketball anymore, they're not going to threaten you. Oh, and also she mentions in this book, she spends a long time talking about, it is the group that a lot of people in Hollywood, a lot of movie stars are a part of. L. Ron Hubbard and them. Scientology. She spends a long, long time talking about Scientology and how she got kidnapped by some Scientologists when she was in her early 20s, late teens, early 20s. Anywho, she talks about something called 3HO. Those are the people who do yogi tea, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it is. They're the ones who do yogi tea. Let's see. What time is it? Okay, so we don't have a lot of time left. So let me get back into, hold on a second. There we go. So again, that's how language becomes cultish, because that is how charismatic leaders use it to have power over people. It's like a cult leader's ultimate power tools. Let me see. Their euphemisms, secret codes, renaming, buzzwords, and mantras, and speaking in tongues. There's also forced silence and even hashtags. Language is the key by which all of the cult-like influence occurs. So it empowers, like I said, I've already read this part where it empowers cult leaders to create a mini universe, a system of values and truths that compel their followers to heed its rules. So it's really important for people who are trying to start these cults to have this kind of language, because that's how they indoctrinate other people and get them to believe things that otherwise they normally would not believe. Speaking of which, let's go on to the next slide. So who joins a cult? This is a reason why we have to refrain from using the phrase drink the Kool-Aid and brainwashing, because it again puts the blame on victims. And the type of person to join a cult is not necessarily who you might think of off the top of your head. So it's usually a stereotype of people who wind up in cults, like the Moonies. They're going to say that they are desperate or disturbed or intellectually deficient. I'm trying not to say stupid, but they think you're kooky or you're stupid or you're naive. People tend to believe this stereotype because they want to think, hey, I'm smart. I would never do anything like that. There's no way I'd end up in a group like that. But Amanda Martell said what she has discovered after talking to dozens of cult survivors and scholars is that folks, and I'm quoting her right here, is that folks who wound up in history's most notorious cults were incredibly bright, open-minded, and service-oriented. If anything, their Achilles' heels was not desperation, but an excess of idealism. These were the sorts of folks who believed that an answer to the world's most urgent problems was out there. Hang on. And they could play a part in it. And they were willing to tough it out. So it doesn't mean that anybody could, end up in a cult like Jonestown. But for those who do, and I'm quoting her still, it isn't foolishness that keeps them there. It's optimism bias, confirmation bias, sunk cost fallacy, ingrained human reasoning flaws that we all possess, and that can be triggered with certain language techniques. And in this book and in a lot of other interviews and other books that have been written about the situation, they talk about how Jim Jones was a master at this, how he could change his speech patterns to sound like a Black Southern minister. And then because he read so many books and was so well read, he could change it to sound like a college professor. And he was a narcissist, y'all. He was a narcissist, and he was hopped up on drugs. And so he was using his mind and lack of empathy to control people. That's why 900 people died, including so many babies and young folks, people having to hide in the woods at night to escape and go to freedom. I believe he even killed a senator and whatnot. So anywho, the people who you most likely think would join a cult are not. You have to really understand that people want people who end up in these horrible cults to have some sort of deficiency or some sort of cognitive issue, so that they can rest assured to themselves that could never be me because I'm too smart. When in fact it is the people who are the most open-minded and the people who are the most optimistic who end up in some of these cults and surrounded by some of these charismatic gurus who are out to cause people harm. So anywho, let me see. The time is almost up. Let's see if there's anything else that we can talk about. One more slide. How social media has changed cults. Oh, honey. There's some people that's part 6 of this book. And when she started talking about some of the people on YouTube, I was like, oh my goodness, I know who that is. I've seen ads for their videos, or I've watched some of their videos and thought, that's not for me. But she specifically talks about this one lady named Teal Swan, who I've seen a couple of her videos, but she just seemed a little, it wasn't my cup of tea, so I didn't drink it. I prefer coffee, so I went and got some coffee. But there are some people who this woman has convinced to go through with suicide. And what did she say about internet gurus? The internet makes secular cults more accessible. There now is a cult for everyone. Since we can be connected at our fingertips, now that's what she calls them, secular cults, not just religious cult, but secular cults. Um, and again, they're using language. It's a quote from the book that I really like that says, "With a glimmer of willingness, language can do so much to squash independent thinking. Obscure truths encourage confirmation bias and emotionally charged experiences such that no other way of life seems possible." So the reason why she ended up writing this book is because her father grew up in a cult. His parents joined a cult and he was raised in it, and he escaped by secretly going to high school and doing science experiments. And he knew that there was something that wasn't quite right about the cult that he was in. And so he had to go to school in secret because they all lived on a compound, and all the children were raised by everybody at the compound. And he had to sneak. I don't know how he did it. I think they used to try to recruit, and he would pretend that he was going out to recruit, but he was really just going to high school, y'all. They weren't allowed to get certain medical treatment or anything like that. The book goes into more detail about why America seems to have more cults than other countries of similar makeup as far as socioeconomics and education skills are concerned. Let me see if I can find it. Let's see. No, that's not it. It talks about how in America, unlike in other countries where things go bad, people depend on their government to help them as far as with health care and higher education. But America's rugged individualism really will have you out here all on your own. And so she is theorizing that that's why cults seem to kind of thrive here. Again, if you're really interested in this book, we've got print copies, and it's also available on Libby, our Libby app, which is our streaming app. And if you didn't realize this, when you are reading or listening to audiobooks, you can actually take notes in the audiobook. You can pause it, you can bookmark it, and take notes and whatnot. Y'all let me know if any of you are interested in that so that I can show you how to do that next time on the live stream, or I can just post a video on the Lovely from the Library Facebook page. Speaking of which, I forgot to put that right there. Go on and share the live stream. If you've really enjoyed this discussion and are interested in reading more from Amanda Montell, please share the live stream so that other people can join the party too and have awesome discussions with us as well. And also, please sign up for the newsletter. There's the link right there. You can just copy it, sign up for the newsletter so that you'll be able to get discussion questions ahead of time. And you'll know what the next books are that we are going to be reading. Speaking of which, let me stop this ticker tape. You know what? I'm just going to leave it. We'll just leave it. All right. Oh, let me double check the chat. I'm sorry, y'all. See if there's anybody in here with anything to say. Nope, that's okay. All right. So I am going to wrap this up. Let me see if there's anything. I'm looking at my notes from Libby just to make sure that I haven't left anything out. She does mention pyramid schemes and MLMs like Amway and Mary Kay and how they do use religious overtones. I don't know a bunch about Mary Kay, other than if you sell so much, you get that pink Cadillac. And I don't believe that she got to interview Mary Kay. I think she was pulling from interviews that Mary Kay had done in the past. Honestly, I don't know if Miss Kay is alive or not still. She never done nothing to me, so I hope she's still alive and well. And if not, I hope that her passing was peaceful. Let's see. Oh, last thing before we go, let me stop this ticker tape parade. 1 second, Joel. Let's stop the banner. Hide. Okay, and we're also going to hide this too. All right, the last thing I want to say is thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with me for this hour, roughly this hour. Next month, the book that we are going to be reading is, hold on, because I need to get you the date. And I don't remember the date off the top of my head, but I'm going to look it up real quick. And hang on, I got to find my calendar. It is going to be August the 17th. I believe it's going to be August the 17th. Yes, August the 17th, we are going to be reading. Hold on, let's get this off of here. A Psalm for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers. This is a very quick read. You can also get the audio book on, I want to say it's on Hoopla, but let me not lie to y'all. Let me double check that real quick too. If it's not on there, I believe it's going to be on Libby. Hold on a second. It's trying to tell me to update something. No, ma'am, we won't be doing that right now. Let's see. Hang on. A Psalm for the Wild Built. Let's see if that's in here. Yes, A Psalm for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers. So you can check it out on Hoopla. Hoopladigital.com is where you can go to download the app. It is free with your library card. If you need help with that, please give us a call. You can also find instructions on our website. Let me just read a brief synopsis for you so you'll know what we're in for next month. It's been centuries since the robot of Panga gained self-awareness and laid down their tools. Centuries since they wandered en masse into the wilderness, never to be seen again. Centuries since they faded into myth and urban legend. One day, the life of a tea monk is upended by the arrival of a robot, there to honor the old promise of checking in. The robot has one question: what do people need? But the answer to that question depends on who you ask and how. They're going to need to ask a lot. So this is a very short book. I say short. I believe the audiobook is only 4 hours, and the actual paperback book is only about 150 pages. So really, you could probably finish this in an afternoon. So that's the book that we're going to be reading next month. Please be sure to join the newsletter so that I can send you the discussion questions ahead of time. Also, if you are watching on Lovely from the Library Facebook page, thank you so much. That is where that's where the discussion happens. So I do weekly check-ins over there. We break the book down in about four parts so that you can get it read before the live stream. We talk about different aspects of the book, what we like, what we don't like. We try not to spoil it. So if you haven't read up to certain parts, I make it really clear we're talking about this section of the book. So if you're not that far, don't read it because it'll spoil it for you. And some of y'all like spoilers. So some of y'all are not going to have any problem with the book being spoiled for you. In fact, a lot of you ask me, spoil the book, Lovely, spoil it for me. I think it's weird, but if it tickles your pickle, hey, then that ain't no problem for me. Then if you like it, I love it. But for those of you who don't like spoilers, that's a reference to a TV show. If you know who it is, let me know in the comment section, and you'll get a high five next time I see you. But anywho, I'd love to have you for next month. I'd love to see you chit-chatting on the page with me on the Lovely from the Library Facebook page. You can even come to the library and we could talk about the book here too. I love doing that, and I love visiting with y'all. Thank you so much for giving me a little bit of your time on the live stream. For those of you who are watching the replay, thank you so much for spending some time with me that way as well. I hope you all have a really, really good rest of your day. And I'll see you next month when we read our August selection. Bye.